Released as part of a series once heralded as the Pokemon killer, Yo-kai Watch Wibble Wobble was released on mobile devices in the West a few years ago, and while the Japanese version, Puni Puni, is still alive and kicking today, the international version was not so lucky. Hello and welcome to the Absolute Gamecast. Today on Video Game Graveyard, we dive into the life and death of Yo-kai Watch Wibble Wobble to discover how it met its end. Before I start, I would like to include some context for the game for those who aren't familiar with it, but you may skip if needed. Yo-kai Watch Wibble Wobble started its life as Yo-kai Watch Puni Puni, a puzzle role-playing game released in Japan on October 21st, 2015, which was later localized and released in North America on March 24th of 2016. The gameplay is pretty simple. You battle and collect yokai in puzzle-based battles by popping or matching the same yokai to damage enemies with larger yokai icons, dealing increased damage. Each chain of yokai will also increase your fever bar, which briefly freezes time, allowing you to make more combos before dealing all the accumulated damage at once. You can also increase your odds of befriending yokai by feeding them their favorite food before defeating them, and there's a gacha which can also reward you with yokai on occasions, with some being exclusive. There are also bosses at the end of each level that act nearly identical to the rest of the battles, with the exception of various special mechanics featured in all boss levels. That's probably all the catch-up information out of the way. Moving on to the first chapter of this video, let's discuss the game's life and what it was like. The international release of the game launched with a strong hook from the beginning, that being that it was released just before Yo-kai Watch 2 in the West, but featured many of the as-of-yet unreleased yokai introduced in that game. That meant for many people this was their first time meeting those yokai, which at the time was a big deal. There were also fairly regular content updates and events throughout the game's lifespan that added several new yokai, new levels, and new ways to play. With the regular content updates, it felt like there were always new things coming and new yokai to meet, which kept the game fresh for a solid 2 years. With Yo-kai Watch as a franchise already beginning to drop in popularity overseas, Wibble Wobble consequently began to see a steep decline in its player base. This, along with all the game's numerous events beginning to quickly lose their steam, as well as players rapidly growing tired of the prevalent gacha mechanics. This would often require spending of real money for the best chance of pulling any good yokai, and later on, the score attacks would make pulling rare yokai near mandatory to get high scores, and those who weren't lucky enough would almost never place high, which turned a lot of players off. Speaking as a first-day player of the American release who preferred not spending copious amounts of money very often on what might as well be a lottery, this was the aspect that turned me off the game. I left it for a while, and when I felt like playing again, I logged on only to discover it had shut down. At the time, I wasn't very disappointed, but in retrospect, I do honestly miss the game and wish there was a more practical way for me to play it now. But seeing as the international releases have been discontinued for 5 years, it's unlikely to ever come back outside of Japan anytime soon. With all that being said, that brings this video to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Not gonna force you, do what you want. Thanks for tuning in, and that's the video. Bye.